So let's start off with our usual prayer for teacher and student. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditam Astuma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May that one nourish us, may that one protect us in our studies. May we work together with great energy and vigor. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily argue with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So before we officially started our broadcast here, there was a small question and answer session. And if we were to summarize it, I suppose, we would have to clarify some understandings about what we call Advaita or non-dualism as the highest conclusion of the Vedanta philosophy. But you see, Vedanta is not exclusively this or that. Vedanta is the essence of truth, but there's a relativity of perception everywhere. Things look different from different viewpoints, and it's wise to take every viewpoint on, so that as we require, we have available to us a supplementary position all the time. So all of us, we start with facing problems. Now, do we really have problems? That's the good question. And from the Vedanta point of view, we can just simply cut to the chase. The answer is no, we don't. No more than if you're playing a game of tennis, a ball coming at 100 miles an hour is a problem. It's not a problem to a skilled player. It's a problem to an amateur who's picking up the tennis racket for the first time and swinging wildly at it with no experience or no practice. No matter what you take up, practice is required. Practice of what? Practice of what is called viveka, discernment. And that means that we have to shift our view and have a different view, have a different outlook on the world. So it begins with rephrasing everything, because we're thinking in words and language. We're eternally, as I keep saying, having a dialogue with our own self. And the person that's noticing it is like an umpire arbitrating. Oh, you said this. Now what do you say to that? We have a funny expression of it for a certain personality type when we do the Enneagram. I wrote myself an angry letter and received a defiant reply. Non-dualism says there's only one entity. So when you have a dialogue, you're having a dialogue with yourself. Your own mind is taking up different positions. And in doing this, we are accessing something remarkable, because we are accessing an area that has all possible solutions within it. And you must have noticed the expression, it came to me, as if it comes from the outside. People who have some level of inspiration, they think that something is coming from outside, hitting them like a rocket. But actually the reality is it's coming from inside. And so any student going to a teacher and asking a question, a wise teacher will not answer directly. They'll say, please come and stay with me for a while and look after the cattle or do something. That's the ancient way of doing it in the ashrams. I want to be a student. I approach a teacher. I approach the teacher with fuel in my hand, representing, oh, please enlighten me. Light a fire of knowledge for me. And I'll offer you a little gift in advance. I'll give an advance payment. And don't be impatient. Impatience would be the one sure way of the teacher saying, no, go home. When you're a little bit more mature, you come back. We require patience, because the truth in any event, whether it is scientific truth or whether it is spiritual truth of any kind, requires a certain level of patience to explore the subject properly. And the way we explore it is we probe it consciously and leave it. Probe it a little bit more, leave it. From somewhere, some suitable solution comes, simply because we shifted our attention in such a way that we are leaving it to some other entity. We can call this entity cosmic mind. Shuffle various ideas around, look at it from this direction, from that direction, from the other direction, and while brushing the teeth or when the mind is not occupied with anything in particular, maybe walking in the garden or something comes to us. Aha, that's it. Don't think that it came from you. It came from a region beyond you in the sense, but within you. And it comes as what we might call a kind of inspiration. And so gives us the confidence to know that every problem has a matching solution somewhere. And where is it coming from? Cosmic mind, what we might call God's mind. Don't think you have a mind of your own. Now, this has come as a modern term called panpsychism. There's only one mind somewhere. And in its strongest form, we know, yes, there's only this cosmic mind. And we just simply tune into it here, there, and leave it. Our part in it is very small. To put it in theistic language, we move a little bit, God moves 1,000 steps toward us. We open up a gateway and divine grace flows in. Divine inspiration flows in. So what is the human being now? We have to revalue the human being. We have to imagine it as a kind of divinely constructed equipment for facing so-called problems, not actual problems. Because if there were actual problems, we would find it difficult. No solution anywhere. Some solution comes, some opening comes, some gateway comes, but it requires faith. It requires trust. Trust meaning an unwavering conviction that things will come, that in God's world, there is no obstacle. There is no obstacle too great for us not to overcome. We are equipped for it. We have to have faith in this equipment, and we have to have faith that there is a vast resource beyond our small, limited sense of our own individual understanding. And so this enables us to face so-called problems fearlessly. When we have absolutely no fear, we have absolute illumination. Now, there are moments when we don't have fear. When are these moments? Even in the unconscious mind, we don't have it. And these are when we are fast asleep, when there is no second world to behold, when there is no temporality, no spatial dimension, when there is only one sense of peace. And we might be repeating the mantra that people may recognize called snoring. In that state is a non-dual state. Non-duality means there's no second to oppose me, to argue with me, no second to like me or dislike me, no second to criticize me, because there's an absence of names and forms that are within the realm of time and space. So, beckoning from the Lord, now what do you think about me? Well, you see, some of you may say, Lord is a God that puts obstacles in my way and is cruel to me and makes a terrible world. I could have made a better world. Well, it's like asking the sun, why are you creating warfare on earth? Why are you doing all of this? And the possibility of a nuclear explosion on the earth, "Oh son, why are you doing this? You're the life giver here. Why are you doing it?" And if the son were able to speak, he'd say, "I have nothing to do with it. Don't blame me. Blow yourself up if you like. I'll still keep shining. Even if you blame me, I won't even hear it. I'll keep shining, because in my world, there's no subconscious mind. In my world, there is only a sense of peace and oneness." So we might say that if our whole life can be, hour by hour, beset with problems of various types, then we have the capacity to face it like a sportsman if we are revaluing problems as waves which are filled with resources. And we use these resources and we take them and tune these resources into the highest. What will be the effect? So the Bhagavad Gita has this passage in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I often say that there may be several ways of studying the longest philosophical poem in the world, this Bhagavad Gita, the celestial song, because it is written in such a way that all the teachings are there in the second chapter, and all the teachings are there in the 18th chapter, because they're using a method, like public speaking. Tell people what you're going to say, then say it, then tell people what you said. When people learn public speaking, that's how they're told. There's one very famous speaker, see. "I thought you said you were going to speak for half an hour." And of course, the speaker went on for an hour and a half. He said, "Yes, I only spoke for half an hour. The rest of the time was telling you what I was going to say and then telling you what I said." It was the head and the tail of the speech. And all the details filled in between. So in the second chapter, we have all the teaching, and maybe an approach towards studying the Bhagavad Gita is to get the overview of the second chapter, the overview of the 18th chapter, and then go through bit by bit the richness of the detail which is there. So in the 69th stanza there of the second chapter, we have this beautiful statement. Yanisa sarvabhutanam tasyam jagarti samyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisya pasyato mune. That which is night to all beings is in that the man of self-control is awake, the yogi is awake, and that in which all beings are awake is night for the illumined sage. In other words, what we normally view as a normal view of things, the person with steady wisdom, with a little bit of enlightenment, will see it in the opposite way. See, I often quote from the Jewish tradition, because in the Sabbath, to be a Saturday, no, it starts on the Friday. Why does it start on the Friday? Because in their tradition, nightfall is the beginning of the day. It is the preparation for the day. It is the holding of the breath before the day unfolds, before the sun rises and shines. It's the anticipation of that, and that point of view has transferred itself to Christian liturgy, so that matins, morning, is actually in the night, in anticipation of the day. And then the sunrise is all loud, is all praise and glory. You have risen, wonderful. And of course, in the Christian tradition, it's related to the risen Savior and so on and so forth, the risen Christ. Everything is related to that life. So, what is night? Now, we can take it literally in some cases. There's a very famous apostle of Sri Ramakrishna, Latu Maharaj, Swami Purnananda. And he was caught sleeping in the evening, in the nighttime, and Ramakrishna said, "Oh, wake up." Says, "If you sleep in the night, when will you meditate?" And he took this so literally from his teacher, from his guru, that he used to sleep in the daytime and meditate in the night, sometimes with funny consequences. A kind of wandering type of person, independent-minded, and feeling tired in the day, he climbed into a railway track and slept. And when he woke up, he found himself hauled off at a distance. So there's somebody who took that pretty literally. So what do we mean by that? It means we have to take stock of all the so-called normal events and normal scenarios in our life and see if we can revalue them from a different point of view, just for the adventure of it. Just to look at something from a different point of view. And the common question asked is about a rainbow. Does a rainbow exist or not? You can't say it doesn't exist because you can see it. But it requires certain conditions. It requires standing at a certain angle. It requires rain droplets in the air, which act like a prism. And it requires the restriction of the eye to see it as an arc. Now, I don't know if there's a pot of gold at the end of it. As soon as you go to find out where's the end, you've changed the angle and the rainbow has gone. But does it exist or not? Well, you can't answer it unless you ask another question. Where are you standing? You're standing at a certain angle? Yes, it exists. When you change the angle, no, it's gone. And when you take a flight above the clouds, you must have noticed all the weather itself is gone. It may be raining below the clouds and windy and all the rest of it, but above the clouds, blue sky with the luminosity of the sun shining and a sense of eternality which is there. Not only is no rainfall or no rainbow, but there's no weather whatsoever when you go above the clouds. What is meditation? Meditation is taking a flight above the clouds, having prepared your runway. Prepare your runway nicely, not just at the time of meditation, but in your working, waking, conscious life that you deem to be a reality. The person who thinks that this waking life is the real thing with real problems and real reactions and real grudges and real resentments, well, you haven't understood, because actually, when you look at this life closely, it's all flaky and disappears. It is no different from the experience of a dream, with comings and goings and appearances and disappearances. It's all made from waves. It's all to do with rainbows and seemingly fragmented light. And what is, using this analogy, what is the fragmenting factor that makes you see this world in a dualistic way, in a multitude of varieties? The mind. The mind is the fragmenting instrument. Now you can't say, well, let me get rid of the mind. Then I can get rid of the fragments. No, keep the mind, but revalue it. Rainbows are beautiful. Don't curse the rainbow. The rainbow has nothing to do with it. Our view, and we are constructed to see things in a different way in this. So we have to learn to revalue things. Shuffle multitudes of ideas until the right solution comes to a particular problem. And the first thing that we have to do, therefore, is to revalue the body. That's the first lesson. We have to learn to say, I have no personal mind, and I have no external body. So, a person who understands this principle of non-dualism properly will say that I have no problem to face an external world. Even I don't consider it to be a battlefield, because I'll always get a supply of supplementary answers and solutions, because my internal area is much, much broader than all the small problems which seem to face me. And so there's a huge wealth that seems to be locked up within us. And we call this the subconscious mind. But in God's area, there's no subconscious. We have to resort to that area. The cosmic ego contains the subtlest subatomic energy tremor to the most colossal things that you can think of. If there's a cosmic mind, it contains all of that. And so we call this cosmic mind, technically, it's in Vedanta philosophy, we call it a golden womb that manufactures everything, a creative area that delivers everything. We have to resort to that. Now, cosmic mind in religion is called God. So devotees of God will have access to the cosmic mind if their prayer is not egocentric, if their prayer is not expressing a gap, a kind of inward sense of absence of something. I don't have something, I want something, I haven't got it. It's an eternal triangle which doesn't go anywhere. I want it, I haven't got it. Plus one, minus one, you won't get anything. If you want to be scientific about it and see, does prayer work? And there have been scientific studies like that. The conclusion is no better than chance. Yes, because you worked on a premise. I haven't got, I need, I want. Equivalent to, I haven't got, I have a deficit in me. I have to fill it from somewhere. Where will it come from? And it's not within my scope, so I'm looking for help to an external authority, some extra cosmic created God that has all the answers. As soon as we have that understanding, or that misunderstanding, I should say, then we won't get anything. Much better to say, everything is full and free, and thanks in advance. Thanks already accomplished. Mobilize the cosmic mind and get your unusual solutions to your unusual problems. And so we have to look at things in a very different way. The total stock is all contained in the cosmic mind. And the first lesson, then, I don't have a personal mind. My so-called personal mind is really just a small area projecting out of the cosmic mind. And the entire cosmic mind is available for me to pick and choose from. It's an eternal cosmic storehouse. I can get anything I want from it. If we recognize that and revalue the presented mind, not as your personal property, to be solved only within that small area, but an area much more called the cosmic mind. And a much, much greater, vast area that can be made to come according to the necessity, stand at the right time, at the right place, tune into the cosmic mind, and everything will be delivered. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, other things will be added unto you. Now, we were talking then about people who say, no, this world should be left off. It is this world that's the problem. It would be much better if we didn't have such a world. After all, the ideal condition is deep sleep, where there's no world present. Yes, but inevitably you reincarnate into the waking world again, and nothing has improved. You say, I want to sleep forever. I don't want to face these problems. Well, because you see, you haven't mobilized the conscious mind, the conscious aspect, the conscious tool, which has a capacity to tune in to a cosmic mind. Like a radio broadcast, continue tuning in your small transistor. And this retuning is called practice. Now, these are all things I have repeated multiple times before, but there's no harm in repetition. We have to repeat these things. We have to constantly repeat and remember and remind ourselves of these principles. And then, of course, practice them. Have a different outlook on the world. Bless the world. Don't say, poor me. Don't say, what a pity. Say, what a glory. It is all full and free. And you may say these are just words. Yes, words mobilize thought, either for good or ill. Every thought mobilizes this cosmic mind, and you get what you ask for. So the subconscious mind has to be reformed. It cannot be done directly. We have to do it through conscious mind, which we call practice. And this practice is practice of revaluing things. And part of that revaluation is what is called viveka, or discrimination. And then it requires self-control. Self-control means control of the mind. It's the very core of the Vedantic discipline. And without this self-control, there's no progress possible in spiritual life. And there's no success in meditation either. So by means of self-control, we can empty the mind, as it were, of the worldly contents. Not by emptying the mind as a void, making it blank, but filling it with high values of things which are revalued. No, I don't have my own mind. The mind is the sitting room of the divine, the sitting room of the Lord, God's throne room, on which we can also sit and view things as He sees it. We can shift our attention, and sometimes, instead of viewing it from our point of view, God made the world and saw that it was good. Why is it that we think it's bad? See it from God's point of view and have a blessing attitude and see the transformation. We have the capacity to transform things. We have the capacity to take all the so-called difficulties and mud and potholes and all the things of the world that seem to be troubling us and pricking us, and taking them as raw material and transforming them. Why don't we do that? It is purely done through outlook, revaluing things, the capacity to think in a positive way. The negative way will always be egocentric. It will always be a situation where I might be the victim. I am the struggling entity, struggling against unfair odds, and I either have to resign and withdraw, or I have to aggressively fight. In any event, it's disturbing my mental equilibrium. I can take a different attitude. I can see that everything is full and free and perfect, nothing to combat. I can stand outside my small circle, my small area where I'm in constant combat, and stand there as a reviewing entity, blessing from there with a spirit of generosity. Let this whole globe of myself on the one side and people and places and events on the other, let it all be blessed, because it is all a manifestation, expression of one consciousness. Non-duality doesn't mean we'll do away with the separateness. Non-duality means it's all one thing, looking like a rainbow on the one side and looking like an absence of weather on the other, looking like an immanent thing on the one side, looking like a transcendent thing on the other. What is immanence and transcendence? So I'm going to give you the example I always give, and this is repetition. I have nothing new to say, I just say the same thing over and over again. So I gave the example some time ago. A company called Pane Glass Incorporated they decided that, being glass, they were not immune to the rays of the sun. The sun just flowed through them, and they had a board meeting and decided we should charge the sun some tax for flowing through us. We should stop the sun at the border and demand that he has a visa. And we can charge for the visa. And we'll make every effort to block the sun if it resists us. And so, sure enough, the following day, this was obviously a night meeting. In the day, the sun rose and so on. And to prevent the sun from shining through, they jostled, fought, and fragmented into shards, 1,000 pieces. They couldn't do it. Now, when the sun was shining through the panes of glass, it is called immanence. And when all the shards went, when everything was shattered, it still shone. This is called transcendence. The only difference was one had the pane of glass and the other one didn't. It was shining through something and then nothing. There's nothing to do with the sun. The sun shines regardless. So we deal with these fragments, and we deal with the fragments, not doing away with them. Allow the sun to shine through. Thanks for shining through. Thanks for sparkling and reflecting your glory through all this. Let us see the beauty. Don't be anxious about it. And then in the earlier discussion, we were talking about the Cathars in northern Spain and southern France. They had this peculiar idea, this world is bad, we have to get rid of it. The problem is the world. Let's do away with it. And in some theologies, you have this to a greater or lesser extent. The world is evil. Let's do away with it. The world is this apple of ignorance. No, this world is fine as it is, and what a glory. This world is full of beauty and truth and goodness and love and harmony. When you see the mechanism of the human body, now with modern technology we can do it. With modern technology we can simulate the small machines operating as I'm speaking in the human body. Taking this central thing, this nucleus within a cell called DNA, two entwined strands. If we undo it, then we can see that the only way to replicate it is a machine in every cell that unwinds these strands. And because one is operating in an opposite way and another in an opposite way, they have an opposite mechanism that replicates. And because, like wool, it doesn't want to jumble together, it has another mechanism which says, wind around me so we don't all get confused, and wind around me, and then we'll rejoin and replicate. A new cell is formed. And what a complex system it is. You know, in modern arguments that we find plenty now, because there's a trend in some countries toward agnosticism to atheism. It's all right. We have no problem with either one of these, because doubt is a necessary precondition for knowledge. If you're doubting, then you're serious about finding out what is the truth. You should doubt. It's a good starting position. And so the idea is, some schools of thought will say, because we don't know how all of this thing began, and we don't know how evolution is progressing, and it requires something called natural selection, but where does it come from? Where's the original drive to survive coming from? Or none of this is explained. What is explained is a common ancestry that we can easily demonstrate. But then there are people who say, if you reduce things, if you reduce the inner workings of the cell to their smallest possible component parts, then this is what is being called by a man called Bihi, irreducible complexity. It's like having a machine. So for example, an example would be the bacterial flagellum, where there's a small motor there, literally, just like an outboard motor, that rotates and propels the bacteria. It's a highly complex system. And there are some who argue, well, we see parts of it in different organisms too. And so maybe it just spent a long time learning and assembling parts until you got this. But the point is, it looks as if there's some intelligence, some supreme mechanic somewhere that designed some machine somewhere. And we can see it's a very strong argument when you see the complexity. When you dismiss it, it means you didn't see the unbelievable complexity, even in a very simple cell. So that we know, well, bacteria have a behavioral aspect to them. Whether they are fully conscious as we are conscious and so on, that's another, we don't know. We have never interviewed the bacteria to find out. But we know that the bacteria know where other bacteria are and where the environment that contains all the nutrients are, and how to absorb those nutrients, and how to convert these into mobility, expression of energy at the simplest cellular level. Now, we should really know that where there is knowledge, it's not introduced all of a sudden. You can't get something from nothing. And we know this, that you can't get a tree unless there's inherent tree sitting in the seed. So what comes out has to be involved in the first place. And Swami Vivekananda brings this out in his lectures on Jnana Yoga. You cannot have evolution without that thing being involved in the process. It was already there. Because the word evolution simply means unfolding. And always I demonstrate this, and you must remember, I've remembered, taking a piece of paper, folding it, and say, now, what do you have? You say, piece of paper. Very good. Now let's unfold it. What do you have? Piece of paper. You don't get anything new. Evolution means unfolding. You didn't get anything new. It's the same thing. So what is this thing that seems to evolve, over time? We can't appreciate it unless we have a view of the totality. And this totality, we call this divine or God, the sum totality of everything, which does not evolve. It just seems to evolve. It is only our limited view that makes us see it is evolving. And so when we revalue things, we can see, well, things seem to change. When we introduce this language, seem, apparent, seeming problems. See, when we introduce these provisional pieces of language, then we are revaluing things. And when we revalue things, what is the practical outcome? Practical outcome is all our problems start being solved. That's the practical aspect of it. Shift your point of view, and what seemed to be a struggle and seemed to be a problem has all gone away. So revalue the human mind, not as your personal property, and therefore, taking this point of view, making sure that all we need for a solution to a difficulty will be patience, a kind of running internal inspiration which will be there from spiritual discipline. And when it's done alone or in the company with other people by study, for example, or discussion or pilgrimage or prayer or devotion, facing actual troubles, we can say, send me on an errand which is troublesome. Your prayer should be, where is my curveball? Where's my difficulty today? A sporting attitude is there. Now, these are all things which I have repeated. So don't complain. Stand there, call up the inside values to suit the problem and stand there. And if God knows you are ready, that you are waiting to get the inspiration, instead of running away from the problem or cursing yourself or fighting it or crashing into it, instead of doing that, if you watch, something else will come from within. An original idea. Yeah, put it there. And if it matches very well, then the evidence of it is that everyone is benefited. It's an all-inclusive beneficial formula that is being used. So imagining the human personality as a multi-purpose instrument, they're designed to face all the problems and solve and access the right solution, not only for yourself, but everybody. Second principle is this: revalue the human body. Forget about its ownership. What is egoism? Egoism is, I have a sense of ownership. I feel that I am the one that profits from my own actions, and I am the one that is doing everything. Now, if we look at it closely, we'll see we're not doing anything. We're doing the minority share of it. The maximum share is done by others. And so if you remember, I'll always tell people, don't think you have your own energy. You're running around on canned sunshine. It is all solar energy. You know, on houses now we can put up solar panels, take advantage of the sun's rays, creating heat, generating electricity from it, and so on. The panel cannot stand up and say, it's all me. So you see, there's nothing that we really own. As soon as we take that prophet-actor complex away from us, we get a certain peace of mind. And so we revalue the body. The repeated passage I always give is from the Kathopanishad, and that we tell us about the Ajna, the one who's unborn, whose consciousness of Vyakra is unwavering. Consciousness is unwavering. It doesn't flicker, unflickering consciousness. Who does it belong to? It belongs to that one steady thing, that kind of emperor that is within a city. And when we study these things with modern technology, we can easily see what a complex city it is. And we're completely unaware of all its operations. It's a fascinating thing to see how the intricate small machinery, minute machinery, nanometers small, operates in such a systematic way, automatic way. We should surely see that it is a city whose only reason why it's operating is because there is a presence there, a kind of supervisory presence, which simply by its presence makes everything work. That shining, all things shine, says the same Kathopanishad in a beautiful statement. He's shining, all things shine. The sun shines, we love it. Because something is shining inside it, behind it, expressing itself within it and as it. Don't block the world off, it's beautiful. It is one without a second, or all. It is only not that there is a fragmentation, but we are designed to see it in a fragmented way. We have to accept it. And once we see it and purify the mind through discipline, it becomes a revealing factor, not a blocking mechanism. So the Vedantic discipline is necessary, that is to control the way we look at things, revaluing everything. And the self-control should be, of course, distinguished from the practice of mortification that involves struggle, self-criticism, self-abnegation, kind of self-torturing, putting on a hair shirt, for example, whipping yourself. Some mystics in the Middle Ages would have done this. It's very different from self-torture. And self-torture is condemned by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita as well. The self-control really means the development of strength, willpower. You deny yourself something. You're exercising your strength. Something presents itself. It tempts you. Just out of sheer will, you say, I won't have it. I won't have it because I can divert my attention. Where will you divert it to? The glory of the divine self or God. Always tuning your attention to that. In that sense, self-control is nothing that you do. Simply a diversion of the attention which you already have. And the Katha Upanishad, coming back to that, compares the whole process in the analogy of a chariot. That the intellect, of course, is the capacity to discern. It is the intellect. The charioteer is the intellect. The reins are the mind. The horses are the sense organs. The outer pathways are the external world. And the one who is sitting there witnessing it is the divine immortal self. So the self is the master of the chariot. The buddhi or the intellect is the charioteer. And the destinations is all in the control of the master. Please go here, go there. What is meditation? Meditation is taking the flow of divine grace and saying, Lord, please go here, please go there. That's all. So what is enjoined in this graphic example of this chariot and charioteer and so on and so forth is not the weakening of the mind or the senses with self-mortification or abstinence. You can decide that you will live in a cave away from everybody, but you see, if the mind is still attached, oh, I wish I was back in the world or something like that, even if you take yourself to a desert island, you're taking yourself with you. You can't escape. It's not a form of escapism either. I always joke, you see. Well, first of all, it's a good question. The people who live in Hawaii, where do they go on holiday? It's an interesting question. But you see, even on a desert island, there are mosquitoes. And you still have to go and get food by fishing or some other means. So, one of the great ways of self-discipline is devotion, the practice of love of God. Diverting your attention away from the small loves to the great love. And practicing that intensely. And that knowledge will by itself be revealed. So we know that there are these 4 approaches that are commensurate with the capacity for the mind to think, to feel, the willing capacity which is there, and then the capacity to harmonize everything through meditation. And because we're not exclusively one or the other, we should use all of these methods. And earlier on in a previous discussion, thinking that these are, structural avenues for us. Well, the self is very subtle. Knowledge of the self is not easy. If it was easy, we would all have it instantly. And so whatever tool is available we require. We require 1,000 tools comprising scriptural knowledge, comprising the guidance of a teacher, comprising the use of protecting thoughts and affirmations, comprising places, pilgrimages, anything that serves to clarify and purify the mind and set it off in an inspiring direction to nobler heights, pushing it above the clouds. Let's try and do it. Well, I'm going to leave it off now. Yes.
What about spiritual bypassing?
Okay, I have no idea. I know about heart bypass, but what is spiritual bypassing? What is it?
It's kind of like, like when people go through hardships or situations, that they don't want to feel anything, and they're like it's a bit very new agey thing where it's like, oh, I just think positive, and it's not dealing with whatever situation is coming in, just because that
It doesn't
makes,
work.
yeah, like, oh, feeling anything or being aware of a reality. Say a reality, there's different realities, but a person's situation that's hit by something, they're feeling a certain way. They're not even allowed to feel it because that's being negative, and then that's not being, how would that
It doesn't work.
work with
It doesn't work because
Vedanta?
it doesn't work because any psychology, whether it is Eastern or Western, does never suggest that you should repress something. Repression doesn't work. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It comes back with a vengeance. You're trying to push something down. And what you're trying to do is push something down from the subconscious area. And if you try to deal directly with the subconscious area, it doesn't work. So you have to cultivate, the positive attitude has to come from cultivating at all times, not just when problems arise, from the conscious mind, conscious effort. That means systematic spiritual practice. Spiritual practice means practicing the divine presence at all times, particularly when the mind is not directed in any particular way, and playing a game where the higher values dominate all the time. And that means when a tragedy hits, then I have a buffer zone. I have something that automatically reacts in a positive way without me trying to cultivate positivity, because you can see that's a contradiction in terms. If I try to be positive, it means I'm negative.
Yeah. It's people not being authentic themselves and whatever it's presenting.
Yeah. So you all these old things, you allow them to come because they'll come. You give them some time because you're playing a game. You're playing the game of guiding thought. You allow them to come with an attitude. Come if you like, stay if you can, go if you must. And then immediately using the great facility of time, which comes in units of seconds, the next few seconds, unoccupied, unused, you put in positive values: strong, true, wise, full, free, truth, beauty, goodness, love, harmony. And I always give it in the analogy of you saying something like a 20-second period. 20 seconds being available to you. And let's say, with a sense of humor, you make the Lord of the universe your scorekeeper. Lord, how am I doing? I'm afraid 4 negatives. 4 negatives while you were brushing the teeth, something where the mind was allowed to wander. 4 things came in. What were they? Well, poor me, what a pity. I should do something better. And this person doesn't like me, and that person doesn't like me. I think I'll go and put poison in their tea today, something, whatever it is. Let's say 4 of those seconds go. Unfortunately, you're in the red by 4. Your unconscious bank balance shows you're in the red. All right. Then in the next few seconds, 16 seconds, I put in strong, true, wise, full, free, truth, beauty, goodness, love, harmony, like that. And at the end of it, Lord, how is it looking? -4, yes, we knew that. +16, wonderful. Net surplus, +12. Put it in your fixed deposit account called the subconscious mind. Build up that habit, not just when you're in trouble, all the time you do it. So that when something does arise, the cultivated habit becomes your first spontaneous habit, your first spontaneous reaction. Create a game like that. This is the convenient thing that we have, the resource that we have. It's called time. Time can come in units called seconds. There's a second, I don't know where it's gone forever. It's not coming back. It was a blank check. The Lord says, here, my child, put something useful in. I hate my neighbor's nose. All right, never mind, try another one. Unlimited seconds we have. Put something useful in, second after second. Do that and create a positive bank balance that will spontaneously come out. So all of this spiritual practice is reforming the habit level. That's all it is. And we do it with a sense of humor and sense of fun. If we don't, it's another negative. See, there's only one explanation for this world, and that is that it is a play of waves. And we had a group last night that I deal with once a month. And one question was, you say that life is a game, a kind of a play, but how is it I don't feel it or I can't enjoy it in the face of losing a loved one? Where's your game then? Yes, but you see, how do you value this thing of death? Is it a tragedy as we mark it? For the dying person, I can show you it's not a tragedy. Or if it is, they're not ready for death. Because you may be losing one person, but the dying person is losing everything. They're losing their dog, they're losing their house, they're losing their bank account, they're losing all their relatives, they're losing their memories, they're losing everything. But those who study death and dying will tell us that when a person is ready to die, they're quite happy to release. And we really know from much copious data assembled from near-death experiences that it's a positive thing. We're walking into what is commonly understood to be an area of light and a feeling of beauty and wonder and so on and so forth. So it's why would you want to come back if that's the case, you see? So don't worry about the person who's dying. They're much better off. And if you think that dying is inevitable, then you're in touch with reality because it is. And if we want to really take stock, ask the question, when will it happen to you? And the common answer to the question, because nobody wants to face it, will be, I don't know. It means I've never thought about it seriously because it's a taboo subject. Several things you don't discuss. You don't discuss death. You don't discuss religion, and you don't discuss politics. Well, okay, in some cases, what else is there of importance to discuss? But the fact is, if the subject of death is like a skeleton we keep in the closet, we don't want to face it. It will happen to everybody except me, is the attitude we take. This is the dilemma, the paradox that Yudhishthira, a character called Yudhishthira, faces in the Mahabharata, great epic. And the story is four brothers are there wandering around. They're all very thirsty. One by one, they go to a lake to fetch water, and a ghost possesses the lake and says, you can only have access to this water if you answer my questions. If you don't answer them or ignore me, I'll turn you to stone, and so like that. Anyway, they all get turned to stone, and Yudhishthira comes, and he knows he's a man of wisdom. The question is, what is the most paradoxical, confusing thing that man has? The thought, the conviction that death will happen to everyone except me. So how do you assess when you're going to die? Well, use some statistics. In the country where you live, what is the average life for a man? What is the average life for a woman? A woman is normally a little longer than a man. And then since we're doing yoga or something like that, or on a good diet, we'll add some few years, fine. Then you say, where am I now? And then, well, what will I do in between? I better do something useful. And every second is precious. And every second is an opportunity for us to put something new, something exciting, something rewarding, something beautiful, something elevating, uplift the mind. This is called self-control. Fill the mind with all these positive things. Don't wait for a tragedy to happen. Have a buffer zone already. Have a habit which is already used to, in an adventurous way, looking at things from an unusual area and putting something new and adventurous in, something novel, creative in. We are all artistic creators, misusing our talents with anxiety, worry, and stress. Put something useful in. If you're a devotee, practice the presence of God. That's the easiest way. Feel a perpetual joy because of the living presence of God all around you, presenting itself as people and places and events, as a scenario, as a waking state, saying, come on, play with me. Oh, but Lord, you give me so many problems. No, I'm giving you loving tennis balls. When a ball comes, you run away. You say, oh, you duck. Yeah, here's a ball coming. It's no. Learn the art of returning the ball. Play a game of love. Lord, come on. Don't save me. Give me a tough curveball, please. Because I know you're the only existence. You see, this is practical non-dualism. The Lord is the player, the Lord is the ball, the Lord is the net, the Lord is the tennis court, the Lord is the player, the Lord is the expertise, the skill, everything is He. I have nothing to fear. So learn the art of doing that. Think of things in a different way. If you think of things in the standard way, and you say it's New Age, but it's a standard way. Standard way means I'll either block off the problem or I'll face the problem and be prepared to be depressed, or I'll charge into it. These are wrong formulas. They'll only give you pain. Change your attitude. Real positive thinking has no negativity in it. And so the example, everybody here is familiar with the example. So in business courses and so on and so forth, they talk about, oh, be positive. See, what is positivism? Well, you have a glass, and if it's full of water, half full, you say it's half full. A pessimist will say it's half empty. No. A Vedantist will say it's always full and overflowing. It's never half this or half that. See it. See the abundance all around you and get an elevation of joy. Or alternatively, close yourself in self-pity, an egocentric bubble that isolates itself and struggles. It's a wrong formula. All our pain comes from egocentricity. When you remove that, you've removed a substantial obstacle for the freedom that you already have. So in the ultimate analysis, in the ultimate way, the non-dualist will declare, there are no gaps in me, there are no deficits, there's only fullness and perfection. And I will see that everywhere. And when I lapse in that thinking and forget, my antidote is remembrance. Constantly remember it. It's not a resource I use only when I'm in trouble. To face a trouble, so-called, I have to be strong. And where does that strength come from? It comes from the cultivation of strong will, and no amount of psychology or philosophy or anything will substitute for strength. And strength comes from self-control. Every discipline, every spiritual path has as its central practice the practice of self-control. Self-control, that I control the will, I strengthen the will. Fasting is a way of strengthening it, but there are two ways of fasting. One way is to feel utterly miserable and hope the fast will end soon. Is a penance. The other way is to say, this is a supreme opportunity for me to divert my attention away from food onto the glory of the divine self that religion calls God. You must have noticed when you divert your attention how the problem goes away. It's not repressing the problem. It's taking the energy that is to do with problem centricity and put it into divine centricity. So non-dualism is not only saying that there's the eternal on one side, it's saying that there is a game, a play of waves on the other. And only one thing, one is transcendent, the other one is immanent. One is unmanifest, the other is manifest. One is one version, the other is another version, but it's the same thing. And you cannot have the two simultaneously. When you experience the transcendent, the absolute, the relative goes away. Mm-hmm. And when you have experiencing the relative, then the absolute is not there. All right, anything else? So there's a comment here also. So I was listening to Krishnamurti and it was mentioned there is no becoming, correct? Correct. When we try to become from something to something, immediate conflict, yes. So what he's saying is to become something, it's a future orientation. Future orientation and past orientation gives us problems. You see, we are already there. There's nothing to improve or get. We don't go and get our freedom. We already have it. You want to become the ultimate? No, you already are that. That conviction has to be put in. Yes, so that's correct.
Then how do we see so we have this ideal that we are looking up to or striving to become, isn't it, Swamiji? Is that different, or is what the way I'm thinking is different?
Yes, it's not an appropriate thing in spiritual life. In spiritual life, we don't become something.
Mm.
Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is within you. I'm not saying that you should go and get it. You see, because that comes with anxiety. It comes with looking out of the window. Oh, has God come yet? Oh, what a pity. 3-4 days in a row, is God here yet? No. When will God come? See. Not here yet. Change my religion, change my teacher, change my scripture. Find some other solution. Maybe it'll come through there. Maybe Buddha will come instead of Christ.
Mm.
When will you become human? You're already human. So the better term is realize. When will you realize the fullness of your own being?
Mm. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And so what is spiritual life? Spiritual life is removing the obstacles to what is already there. If you say, when will the water come to my field? Well, when will you release it? When will you open the floodgates? As soon as you open the floodgates, the water comes through by itself. So it's removing obstacles. It's the reason why Hindus pray to Ganesha first. Remove our obstacles. Remove these obstacles. When you set your sail and say, well, when will the boat sail? As soon as you set the sail, the wind will blow. So the future orientation in spiritual life is a starting point, no doubt. When will I get this? When will I get that? But at some point or other, that hope is replaced by a certainty about fullness. It's actually reviewing the past with thankfulness. Already got, already here, not to get. Already here. King of Heaven is already here. It's not going to come in 2024.
Mm.
And I don't think it'll come in 2030 either. And I don't think it came in 1992 or 1963. It's already here. Perfection is already within you. You just have to realize it. The whole spiritual life is doing that. Already here, already got. Nothing to get, nothing to obtain, no future orientation. Already here. Well, when will I improve in my spiritual life? Well, whatever you want is already here. Why don't you tune your attention into it? Just a question of tuning. And when it goes off the station, you tune it back again. This is why the fundamental book is there, Practicing the Presence. By Brother Lawrence is the foundational book. Practice the presence. Practicing it now. When you say your mantra, it's not to get something. It's to express something. You do yoga exercise to get something? No. To express the health you already have. Then you'll enjoy it. When you work, what is it? To gain something? No. To express the joy of energy being used in a useful way. So that's the difference. This is called revaluation. This is revaluing it.
Mm. Thank you, Swamiji.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Some other questions there. Why is it that in this long life, not so long when you think about it, we make mistakes and don't realize while doing it, in the end of life, we strive for forgiveness from God for our mistakes. Why we cannot live a life without mistakes and surrender to God at a young age. Why we cannot leave the glory and color of this life with money and walk in the path of God early in life. It's always after mistakes we realize there's great value in mistakes. If you want mistakes, how will you learn? If you're starting learning an instrument, don't expect to play it perfectly in one go. It requires patience in spiritual life, purity, patience, and persistence. And we should enjoy the process. Supposing we want to get to a destination, supposing I live in Dublin and want to be in Galway, and I think that the journey is a nuisance, I'd rather be there in an instant. That on the way, there are good things to see and appreciate. Why don't I enjoy the journey? So it requires a change of attitude. That's what it requires. Don't think that this life is a struggle. Think of it as a game and play the game well. Don't expect to hit the ball perfectly every time. It won't happen. You're not designed that way. And if you're a devotee, you play the game, play it as a game of love. All right, good. So, thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace.
Om